Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of
Wicked Mysterious.
I'm your host, Danie.
And I'm Katie, and this is episode number 5.
5.
We got 5 on it. I'm proud of us for getting to 5.
I know. I think 8 is the magic number, but we're getting close to it. You need at least 5 to be monetized.
Wow, well, that's good.
You need 1,000 listens. We're very far from that.
Very far. That's okay. It's a good start.
But this story that I'm going to be telling you today has been like super big on TikTok lately, but I didn't know till I started researching.
Oh.
So today I'm going to tell you about a strange occurrence that actually happened to me over, I don't really remember how long of a span. It was maybe like 6 months to a year. And like I said, I had no idea that this is like a big deal on TikTok right now. One of the articles was like, oh, this is the newest scary thing on TikTok. So interesting.
Very.
So it's a little bit weird for me to talk about because I don't want people to think I'm nuts. And also because this entity supposedly feeds on fear. So it like freaks me out to think about and talk about.
Do you feel like you're almost vulnerable when you talk about it? Being like afraid in the past, you don't
in the past, yes, but during my research, I became less afraid. Not gonna lie, I had a hard time sleeping last night after I finished my research. I had to do this in the daylight, and I had to do it in a public place,
with
because
people.
I was like really freaked out. So today we're gonna be talking about the Hat Man.
Oh.
Have you heard of this or seen it on TikTok?
I had a feeling we were doing like shadow people, but no, I haven't seen like anything trending about Hat Man. No, not at all. I'm not on TikTok though. I only see like certain reels like on Facebook.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So, no, I had a feeling when you told me that you needed to research with people around, it was shadow people, but is he related to that?
So we'll get into that. He is kind of related to shadow people, but I couldn't like really figure out. I did some research into what shadow people are, and there is big differences. So we'll talk about that.
Okay, cool.
And I think by now our listeners have gathered that like I'm not like a believer necessarily.
You're more skeptical usually.
I'm open to things, but I've definitely had my share of strange experiences that I can't explain. So take that for what you will. I hope nobody thinks I'm like a freak for telling this story because it's so oddly specific that it's like, it's just weird.
I'm excited for this story. I am.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest. I don't like talking about it.
I'm proud of you then for pushing through that because
it's freaky. It's just a freaky thing. Okay, so this happened to me around 2009, 2010-ish. Okay. So I was renting a room in Bridgewater in a house with 3 other girls. So I lived upstairs with another girl. We had separate bedrooms, and then there were 2 girls downstairs. So one day out of the blue, my roommate was like, I think we have a ghost. I think we have a ghost. Just, I don't know why she thought that. She heard like noises and all this stuff. And then one day I came home from work and I had a pet rabbit. His name was Bunny. He was so cute.
Such a cute name.
He was out of his cage, like running around. And it happened like, I don't know, a handful of times that I'd come home and he'd be like out of the cage. So my roommate was like, oh, we have a ghost, like freaking out about this. So around that same time, one night I was laying in bed, and the way my room was set up, I had my bed up against like the far wall, and directly across from me, there were 2 closets, like one on each side. And there was my bureau in the middle with the TV on top. So I'm watching TV in bed, and like, I don't want to say like out of the corner of my eye, but like the corner of my vision, I could see somebody standing like in the shadow next to my TV.
Your peripheral.
Not my peripheral, because like when I could look directly at it and I didn't see anything. It wasn't like out of the corner of my eye, like my peripheral, like behind my shoulder or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was like in my line of vision, but when I looked at it, I couldn't see anything. But I could see it very clearly, like watching TV, and it was only on one side of my TV, not like on both sides.
Wicked creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like in the room right there with you, you could see it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it just started happening one night, and like I remember like having, I was in my 20s too. Like I'm not a kid.
Yeah, I was thinking that right away when you said 2010. I'm like, you were significantly older already by then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and you know, this was my party days, and like, so take it for what you will. But I mean, not like I was drunk all the time, but like, partying for sure, like a lot. And so what I could see was like the shadow was tall. I could see like a hat, like a wide brimmed hat,
like a top hat, kind of.
Not as tall as a top hat, but like if you think of like film noir, old school detective style outfit. But I can only see the outline, and so he also had like a long trench coat. Some people describe it as a cape. Some people do describe it as a top hat, but for me, I didn't see a top hat. I saw like just a wide brimmed hat.
Okay.
So yeah, around that time, like a couple months later, my lease ended and I moved home. I'm thinking like when I move home, you know, I'm comfortable with it. Like I thought maybe it was something like just in the house in Bridgewater that I was living at. I thought maybe it was haunted like my roommate said or whatever.
Did it happen all the time though until you up until this point, up until your lease was done? Like it happened a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember like how long of a span, less than a year that I was there at that. Well, I was at that house for multiple years, but I only saw this thing toward the end, like 3 to 6 months maybe before. Probably not even 6 months.
And had you always been in that same room too?
No.
Okay, so you switched rooms while you were there?
But there was a time where I didn't see anything either.
Okay.
So when I moved home, I saw it there too. And I moved back to my parents' house. I was living, my bedroom was in the attic, so I had like the whole attic to myself. And yeah.
So like, let's talk about that for a second. Like the first night sleep, did you see it there like right away? Do you know? Like, was it like your first night there?
Yeah. It like never really went away.
Yeah.
It was like constantly like a feeling. I'll get into it, but one of the things with this particular entity, whatever it is, I'm getting chills, is like...
I can see it.
Yeah, is like the feeling of being watched. Like it watches you. It'll just stand there and watch you. So I'll go into like the specifics of like what people think this is because it's widespread.
I was just thinking like, what were you thinking when you go back and you see it at your house now? Like, nuts. Holy shit!
Like I thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise,
it was just so like I said, so specific with the hat. And like,
in 2010, it wasn't like it was all over. What were we on MySpace back then? Like. Right?
No, I had never heard of this.
Right. It wasn't a big thing, and we weren't exposed to it. So, you definitely probably thought you were going crazy.
I thought I was going crazy.
Poor thing.
So, the guy that I was dating at the time came over one night. My parents were away.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, responsible for the house and the animals and stuff. So, he came over and we're up in the attic in my room, and he lays down to go to sleep, and he just sat straight up and said, "What the fuck is that?" And I was like,
oh my God, I got chills right now.
So you can see it too. Okay.
Stop.
And he's like, I'm leaving. I'm going home. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not staying here by myself.
What?
Like, so yeah. So I went home with him. I didn't see it in his house, but it's like a constant feeling of like being watched. Like it feels like stalked almost.
I mean, I would imagine absolutely. Once you see that thing and it's watching you, you feel like you are violated almost like by your privacy is now like, you know.
Yeah, it's just freaky.
Horrible.
So eventually it just went away. Like one day just was gone. Never has bothered me again. I didn't like talking about it for like years because
I don't blame you. Yeah.
One of the times I had a friend who was super sensitive, like super believed in ghosts, super like, you know, very, very sensitive to energies and stuff. I was trying to tell her about it and she was like, nope, like
didn't even want to listen.
To do with it. She was like, I can feel it. Like it was just freaky.
Maybe we should have put a disclaimer in the beginning of the video. Yeah, maybe we should say to let you know.
I was gonna come get you.
Caution, right?
So then a couple years later, I went to a party in Worcester with my sister.
Okay.
And we started talking to some rando dude at this party, and something came up about shadow people. And at this point, I realized that my sister also had these experiences.
Wow.
In the same house, in the same room. But remember, it also happened to me in Bridgewater. So it wasn't like necessarily.
It wasn't just that room.
It's not related to like a room or a house or like a haunting or any. It's not like that.
But maybe a family or.
So we'll get into that too. This dude at the party was like wicked nonchalant about it. And he's just like, oh yeah, Hat Man. And I'm like, Hat Man? I'm like, so it's like a thing people know about? And he's like, yeah. So when I got home, I started Googling around and I saw pictures of it. And I was like, oh shit, that's like what I saw. At this point, it's like gone. And then I realized it was also featured on Unsolved Mysteries.
No way.
Which I told you, like, I was obsessed with Unsolved Mysteries as a kid. I watched it all the time. I still like it.
Me too. Look at us.
I know,
Look at us.
This is why this podcast.
Meant to be.
I figured, like, I'd gaslight myself into thinking, like, oh, I must have seen it on Unsolved Mysteries and I just forgot. And, like, it's a memory that, like, I just put together or something.
Right.
So, like, you know, totally telling myself that I made this shit up.
Trying to.
But I know what I saw and what I felt. And I don't have an explanation for why so many people see and experience the same thing.
Right. That's the thing.
I'll explain a little bit what he looks like. I don't know if you had growing up, it's like, seems like a 90s thing because I don't see him anymore. But where I grew up, we had the neighborhood watch, like the crime watch signs with a guy with the hat and the trench coat. You ever see that? I'll show you this real quick.
Yeah, I didn't have one growing up, but okay, yep.
So that's what
like
that was the sign. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know if anybody at home, I mean, you can Google Hat Man yourself, but it always reminded me of that neighborhood watch sign, which just like a almost shadowy figure.
Yeah, it looks like a detective almost.
Yeah, yes, like an old school detective. Yeah. Yes. He's tall, reported from 6 to 10 feet tall. When what I saw was tall, but not like, oh my God, huge tall. Like it was just maybe around 6 feet tall. He's not necessarily shadowy. Like he's solid, but you can't make out features.
Okay.
You cannot see through him from other reports that I've read. He does tend to stay in the shadows, but some people have seen him in broad daylight. Some people have seen him walk directly through closed doors, but he always uses a door, which is strange. Like he'll walk through an open door or a closed door, but won't walk through a wall.
Interesting.
So I thought that was strange. He wears a long trench coat or something because, again, you can't make out features. It's just a solid
like you
figure.
Can't tell if it's a cloak or
a cloak
trench
is a good
coat.
word. A lot of people said like a cape.
Right.
Yeah. A wide-brimmed hat. Some people describe it as a fedora, but what I saw was more of a wide brim.
Okay, because a fedora doesn't even come close to a wide brim. You know,
it's almost really like a bowler hat, but the brim is wider.
Okay.
I personally never saw him directly head on. He was always like in a shadow.
And you would turn to him and he would not be there. But
if I like moved my eyes over, I wouldn't see it. No.
Right. So
it was always like when I wasn't looking directly at it.
Yes.
Some people have reported that he's so tall, he needs to hunch. Like he's taller than the ceiling, so he'll need to like hunch to fit in the room. That wasn't my experience, but
I guess it depends on what size ceilings you have. I mean, what
like
height?
They say that he's like 6 to 10 feet tall. So if he's 10 feet tall, like he'd have to hunch. But I don't. When I saw it, it was like 6 feet tall. He's also been reported to have a pocket watch. I did listen to a podcast where they interviewed this like super religious lady. She mentioned him having teeth similar to Pennywise.
Wow.
But I personally did a lot of research and I didn't see a whole lot of encounters that say that.
Yeah.
Also, if you Google pictures of him, it'll show him depicted with glowing red eyes.
Okay.
But it seems like the teeth and the eyes are just added for effect because most encounters don't say anything about that.
Yeah. Like, how do you take a guy and make him scarier? Give him teeth and red eyes.
Yeah. He usually has no distinguishable features, no eyes, nose, or mouth.
Right. I can picture a dark black silhouette, basically.
Yes, basically silhouette.
Like those, like you had to have done it, but you know, back in the day, how we did like the kid's shadow on the wall and they would trace out your shadow and give it to your parents. It would be like a kid's project at school, you know, and it's just that outline of that black. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I'm picturing him to be. But obviously like 3-dimensional, like, right? Like he's not so cut out like that.
It depends on the report. Like some people have seen him move or float. I did kind of see that one time. Like one time I woke up and he was like standing over my bed, which I'll get into like the other stuff about that.
Creepy.
But as far as what he looks like, he's usually seen sitting or standing in a corner just watching you. I also read that he can watch you through mirrors. So if you like are looking at a mirror, you can see him like behind you and stuff. That didn't happen to me, but that was some of the reports. So most of the time, Hat Man just sits and watches you. He doesn't give off a particularly scary vibe. He's mostly harmless, but sometimes people are terrified, and other times people just feel an ominous presence. Mm-hmm. He is often related to sleep paralysis or a hypnagogic hallucination.
Oh, wow.
So hypnagogia is the state between awake and sleeping, but I'll tell you 100% I was not sleeping.
Yeah.
When I saw this.
Right.
I was not
and it was
falling
happening
asleep.
to you all the time.
Yeah.
So I had one time an experience with the sleep paralysis, with the black shadow that came out from a closet and it like hovered above me, and it was high school days and I got absolutely zero sleep. And I remember driving with my boyfriend at the time to school, and he like saw me falling asleep. Finally feel safe. And he's like, oh, I'm going to mess with her, and brake checks me. And I like hit the dashboard and I'm like, you kidding me? I didn't sleep all night. I had a shadow man like hypnotizing me or whatever I thought at the time. But like, yeah, it's just crazy when you can't like scream and move. And I know a lot of people out there have had this, that I've heard a lot about. Only once happened to me though.
So it also happened to me around the same time period.
One time, sleep paralysis? Wow, interesting. I have heard that it happens once to a lot of people, just once.
Yeah, so sleep paralysis is there's whatever chemical in your brain or whatever's happening when you're asleep to prevent you from acting out your dreams, getting up and moving around and stuff. So sleep paralysis happens when whatever that switch doesn't shut off when you wake up, so you're just kind of frozen.
So crazy.
So it did happen to me in the same time period, but I didn't see. It was in the morning too. It wasn't the middle of the night.
Yep.
My dad was getting ready for work and it woke me up, and I woke up and I just couldn't move. I couldn't scream. It's terrifying.
Yeah. You didn't see any like shadow related to it. Okay.
But a lot of people do.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like I said, some people have seen him walk away, walk directly through your line of vision, through closed doors. And people have reported that he feeds off your fear. And that was my experience.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the more that I worried about it, the more scared I would get. And then the more scared I would get, the more like ominous it felt. And it was just like a cycle.
Yeah. I can't even imagine how that was like psychologically affecting you, because like you'd be going to sleep every night almost expecting
cover my eyes.
Yeah, like waiting for it to be there. That's horrible.
Yeah. So it's said that the Hat Man sends other evil entities to torment you, in particular the night hag. So I thought this was really interesting.
The night hag?
The night hag. The night hag is not something I ever heard of, but is similar to what I experienced. So it's an old woman who comes and sits on your chest, and you feel like you're being attacked. You feel like you can't breathe. And this is actually where the word nightmare comes from, because it's the nightmare, like a woman.
Wow.
There's actually a nightmare or a night hag, an old woman who comes to torment you while you're sleeping. This folklore is present in almost every single culture in every part of the world. There was so many variations of this, almost in every country. I didn't even bother writing it down. It was literally like every culture, every country.
Wow.
There's some anecdotal evidence that the Hat Man visits those who are in some sort of turmoil or who have recently had a near-death experience.
Oh.
So it's similar to, they think, it's similar to a poltergeist, though a poltergeist is more of
Evil.
a manifestation of your own energy, not a separate entity that feeds off of it.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought a poltergeist was just an evil energy that is in, I didn't know it was not necessarily manifested through you, by you.
I don't know. Who knows what the real answer is?
True.
That's just my opinion, but Yeah, I don't know.
I see. Yeah, we don't know.
So he feeds off your negative energy and then torments you so he can further feed off your fear. Though the Hat Man is related to sleep paralysis, and nightmares, a lot of the articles I read referred to him as a nightmare shared by a lot of people and was even the inspiration for Freddy Krueger.
That's my man right there.
Yeah.
That's cool with the hat.
Yep.
I can see that now. Thanks, Dad. I'm going to give you a shout out for introducing me to Freddy Krueger. Way too young. So many nightmares.
Hi, Katie's dad.
Yeah, thanks. He acted like he didn't know we had a podcast today. I mean, I swear I told him, but...
Well, now he's going to listen because
he's definitely going to have to listen. Yeah, thanks for that.
Articles that I've read like recently refer to him as like a shared nightmare, but I'm telling you, I was not asleep. This was not a nightmare.
Yeah.
And most people's experiences from what I read was not a dream.
Yeah,
like,
right. They can definitely distinguish it. They were not in a dream.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people witnessed Hat Man for the first time as a child. And there's a lot of stories of people who saw him as a child, then as an adult, and then their children also witness him. I didn't see him as a child, but I did tell you that I had an experience with a quote unquote ghost. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking, well, the ghost I saw was a shadow. So
maybe it was, right.
So I don't know.
Like I just tried to think real quick back. I'm like, all those times that I was really afraid of something, like, you know, and especially if we were like really sensitive little kids, you know, empathetic and stuff like we are, I could imagine that if there is something going on, we probably knew something was not right, but even if we couldn't visually see it, we got the feeling. Yes. And that's why we are so scared for a reason, you know?
Right.
And we like, why else would we just naturally be scared of the dark? All little kids. I mean, not all of them, but most of them are like,
yeah. And that is something I read is like biologically, it's scary to be separated from your parents in the middle of the night in the dark. That's not how people biologically you're supposed to sleep with your parents because it's protection. Like,
yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too because I had night terrors as a kid and my mom had the same night terrors that I had when I was a kid.
Wow.
So
that is really cool. Like, yeah. I mean, horrible, but cool. Like to think that it was.
I tried to look into night terror, if there was a connection between night terrors and the Hat Man or night terrors and like shadow people, because that's what I would dream about. But this is very different. This happened wide awake. So there is some sort of connection.
Right. Because I definitely never had night terrors at all.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a connection between that because if you did and you saw him.
And they say that if you're open to seeing one thing, people typically will see other things too, especially as kids.
Right.
Something very interesting that I came across in my research is that Hat Man is somehow related to
Batman?
Hat Man.
No, I was saying it's somehow related to Batman. I was making a joke.
No, but that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
I would much rather Batman in my room.
No. Related to who now? Sorry.
So Hat Man is somehow related to Benadryl. So this is something I did not know until I started researching, but I was definitely taking Benadryl at the time.
Okay, so this changes things now.
Yes,
like
100%.
Wow, and Benadryl is such a widely used drug.
There's a Reddit forum for Hat Man.
Okay.
Reddit. What
Reddit?
I sound like such an old person.
As my bone cracked. Did you just hear that? My hip. I went to take my leg down. Oh my god.
What's it called? It's not. I mean, it is a forum, but it's a Reddit thread.
Yeah.
Reddit thread, just specifically for Hat Man, and it does discuss people seeing Hat Man when taking Benadryl at higher than recommended doses or recreationally. That's not what I was doing.
Right.
But
right.
Take it for what it's worth. I'm also like super sensitive. I have a hard time taking Benadryl because I'll be like knocked out for like days. I can't even take NyQuil because I don't sleep and I fight it and then I go crazy and it feels like shit. Yeah. Like I don't like that at all. So Benadryl contains something called DPH, which is considered a deliriant. So from Wikipedia, deliriants are a subclass of hallucinogens. The term was coined in the early 80s to distinguish these drugs from psychedelics and dissociatives such as LSD and ketamine.
Wow.
Due to their primary effect of causing delirium as opposed to the more lucid and less disturbed states produced by other types of hallucinogens. I'm just trying to like make sense of that.
Well, I apologize, but I was in a trance by Lala. She is just so majestic.
She needs some Benadryl.
This cat is...
Just always all up in our shit. Like, she wants to be part of this so
I couldn't
bad.
help but look at her when you were talking, and I wasn't.
You can't miss her. That's the thing.
Yeah. So say that again. That like second half.
Okay.
Of it.
So deliriants are a subclass of hallucinogens. The term was coined in the early 80s to distinguish these drugs from psychedelics and dissociatives such as LSD and ketamine, due to their primary effect of causing delirium, as opposed to the more lucid and less disturbed states produced by other types of hallucinogens.
Okay. So it's trying to distinguish between them, right?
Mm-hmm. The term generally refers to
cholinergic, something like that.
Cholinergic.
All right.
Anticholinergic.
Okay.
Cholinergic drugs, which are substances that inhibit the function of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Users often experience unpleasant trips and often don't want to repeat the experience. Long-term use can lead to dementia. I actually read, this is so bizarre, this is how far down this rabbit hole I went, and I'm sorry for my family who listens to this, but I actually read a trip report of a man who had sex with a shadow person. And it was the most ridiculous thing. It was like in detail. So this was his plan, because supposedly DPH, when you take it, you can see shadow people. So
it like opens up your brain to like, because I mean, I kind of feel like that with like mushrooms, it opens your brain to see things that, at least if you take enough of them.
Yeah, but there is a difference, because a delirium is not a psychedelic.
Right. Very different. Very different.
Very different. So because it makes you delirious. So, but it's strange that so many people have the same experience on the same drug. So it's doing something.
Right.
But yeah, so this guy, you can find it online. I don't know if you've ever read trip reports, but they tell you like, the onset, the peak, and then, when the trip ends, and like where they were, what they did, who they were with. So this person had a trip sitter who watched this whole thing go down.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
like in
really
detail,
cool.
You can read it. It was so bizarre. But anyway, it's a little sidetracked. So there is some kind of link. I saw on Reddit somebody post about taking DPH, Benadryl, or whatever they took, specifically to trip, and saw Hatman and like posted about it.
Wow.
Moving on. Tim Brown of the hatmanproject.com, or I think it's just hatmanproject.com, thinks he has this all figured out. So I've been following Hatman Project for a really long time. This guy has had to take breaks from his research because of all the weird shit that starts happening to him when he starts researching it. He has a book coming out where he claims to have it figured out, what Hatman is, what he's doing. And good for him, because, he deserves to be paid for that information. Like, he totally teases it on his blog that his book's coming out, and the book has the answers, and I appreciate that, because
he's taking one for the team, he's doing things that others aren't gonna.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So what is Hatman? There's a few theories. Obviously, in my opinion, he's some kind of interdimensional being, because he's able to travel, appear, disappear, float, walk through doors. One of the theories is that he's somebody else's astral projection. Astral projecting is somehow leaving your body, whether it be your mind or your soul or your spirit or something leaves your physical body and you can travel. So some people think that he is somebody else astral projecting. He only has been part of, like, the stories only go back to like 30 to 40 years ago. So it's not something that's been in our culture for a really long time. There's no folklore about it, aside from the nightmare, but he supposedly brings the nightmare to you. I think that's what happened to me, is like, that's what I felt in Bridgewater. So some other theories, the biggest theory that when I first started looking into this was that he was some sort of time traveler because of the old style clothing and the pocket watch. That podcast I listened to with the super religious lady was like insisting that he's a demon, and he's the worst kind of demon, and he's like the devil himself, and like, all this stuff.
Of course she would.
Yeah, of course she would, because then she's like, evoke Jesus's name and all this stuff, and like, whatever. So you know how I feel about that. There's also theories that he's a shadow person.
Yep.
So, like I said, I looked into shadow people. I think they're basically ghosts, but they might be different than ghosts because they don't have facial features like ghosts do. They also come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and they're opaque. You can't really see through them. Because a typical ghostly apparition, you can see through it. They don't really have any specific features like clothing like a ghost does, but the Hat Man does.
Right. And can I ask, does like, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I'm sure you have, Slender Man. Does he follow in the category?
I was thinking about Slender Man because of how tall he is and the stalking.
Yes, and he doesn't have a hat, or he does?
I don't know. I don't think he does. Well,
I don't think he does either.
The thing with Slender Man,
but he's more of like a kid thing, right? Usually
he's a kid thing, but like Slender Man came from a photo contest. Like it's very clear where the story of Slender Man came from, and is not based in reality whatsoever. The interesting thing about Slender Man is that he did become reality because kids started believing in it to the point where they were like killing other kids over him. So at what point is something real and not real?
Okay, because all right, so I just looked up his picture, and no, he's got like a very distinguishable like white face. He's got a white button up with a black tie. So his clothing is very visible. And he's, again, opaque. There's no seeing through him. There's no way he's like a ghost. But yes, I understand where you're coming from with that. I just thought that there was history of a lot of children reporting this. I didn't know it came from, a photo contest or a costume party or whatever,
But the person who created the image, so Slender Man was, I don't remember the specifics, but it was some kind of photo contest, and the original, like look up the original photo. It was like kids on a playground and Slender Man like lurking in the back.
Okay.
So that definitely came from somewhere. That's where the urban legend came from.
Okay.
Like very, very clearly, like there's a history of that. There was no Slender Man before that.
Okay.
But the guy who made the photo that was in that contest, he had to have thought him up somewhere. So maybe it did come from that. You know what I mean?
You know the story of the girls that did lure their friend?
Yep.
Crazy. But me and my friend Mara, I think I've told you the story. Hi Mara, shout out to Mara. We really followed this like Slender Man thing before, the movie and all, if there even was a movie, I forget now. But before those two girls went and killed their friend in the woods, we were into it. And then when you look at the photo of those two girls, they literally look like young versions of me and Mara.
Yeah, they do.
It's so bizarre. Here I am with bizarre again.
Yeah.
That is me. Like, guys, if you look up Slender Man's, like the girls that, did the stabbing to their friend, poor girl, rest in peace.
The story of that.
Did she live, actually, the friend? I think the friend did live.
Yeah. So there were these two girls. How old were they? 12?
They were really young. Yeah, definitely.
12, 13 years old.
Yes.
We're so into this Slender Man story. So for anybody who doesn't know Slender Man, like I said, it was originally came from somebody's like Photoshop contest submission for scary photos, and you can Google it, but it's like kids playing on a playground, and in the background there's this tall scary guy who looks like an Enderman without the tentacles from Minecraft. So that's where Minecraft got Enderman is from Slender Man. So
that's cool.
Slender Man's whole thing is like he has this slender mansion in the woods, and if
mansion, I've never heard that. That's awesome.
So if you like kill for him or go with him, like you can give him your soul, and like he comes for kids, and like
these teenagers really played into this.
Yes,
like they worshipped him at one point. I feel
to the point where they tried to kill their friend. They stabbed their friend over it.
And these girls look like me and Mara. Like to the point of like Mara, that's how she parted her hair. She had glasses like that. That's how I parted my hair. I had bangs and they curled on the ends just like that. And the little pimples on the chin because of like that awkward stage with, puberty. But literally that's me and her. Like it is the most weird thing. Like I feel like this is us in another dimension or it's just really weird. I'm telling you. I mean, even their personalities, I think Mara was like the punk kid, like the punk ass, and that's so Mara. when we were kids, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? She was like the troublemaker. And then the other one was kind of just like, you know, following suit into the terror. And
collective consciousness is a very real thing.
It's really weird. This might have been it, huh? The original photo that you were talking about?
No, I don't think so. Just
creepy
Google,
though.
Google original photo.
Totally just forget about what I just asked if he was in the same category as, because
it's
clearly
interesting because it
far,
is
though.
similar.
It's far-fetched at the same time. Like, it's not the same. So.
The thing is, like, have you ever heard of a tulpa?
No.
Okay, so this is one of my other theories. A tulpa is something that begins in the imagination, but acquires a tangible reality and sentience. So that's very much like the Slender Man, because he was never real. But then at what point does it become real? Like, kids killed or tried to kill another kid over it. Like, that makes it tangible and real, because now we can talk about this thing that, like, and say, yes, that actually did happen. It becomes reality.
Right. And is that like kind of like manifesting?
Yeah.
Like,
so yes, because
like those kids manifested this reality because they believed in it so much.
It's very similar to Hat Man, because it says, for the definition, tulpas are created either through a deliberate act of individual will or unintentionally from the thoughts of numerous people. So for those that listen to last podcast on the left, they say it all the time, don't feed the tulpa. So it means, like, don't give something your energy if you don't want it to manifest.
Right.
Because that's what happens, and that's why I don't like talking about it.
I was just going to say, and that's why.
Yeah, I feel okay about it now with all my research and shit, and, like, I'm all right with it now, but
good.
It's a freaky thing to think about, that, like, the more you go down the rabbit hole of something, the scarier it is, and then the more scared you feel,
right,
the more real it becomes, and, like, at what point does it actually become your reality? You know, that is my personal opinion. I personally think he's created in our collective subconsciousness, and then given energy by our fear. That's what I think. There's more, though, to back up a little bit. So we talked about him being some kind of interdimensional being, time traveler, demon, the devil himself, a shadow person. An interesting one is an alien. Some people think he's an alien because of the observerness of him, how he most of the time just stands and watches. He can't physically harm you or anything like that. So my questions are, if he's an alien, why is it only at night or mainly at night? What's he doing? Is he trying to appear as a humanoid? And then I started thinking, you know, he kind of looks like the Men in Black. So then I went through that rabbit hole for a little while. Is he erasing your memory? Is that why he comes at night? Is that why he has the ability to be in your dreams? Is sleep paralysis like some kind of effect of that?
Yeah, I think that the only thing that would kind of not fit that would be how everybody does remember, like, seeing him, and so they clearly aren't getting their memory erased.
Not good enough.
Yeah, not enough. Maybe he's erasing other parts of their memory. Maybe he's erasing something before or after that you don't remember.
That's what I was thinking. So the Men in Black bear a striking resemblance to the Hat Man. For those that don't know, the Men in Black are thought to be damage control sent by the government, sent by aliens, or are actually aliens themselves who come to threaten witnesses or erase the minds of witnesses. So maybe that's why they come at night. Maybe that's why there's sleep paralysis. The Men in Black have also been seen, though, as real humans in broad daylight, like not a shadow figure, but the men that, you know, dress with the suit, the black suit and the tie and the hat.
Right.
The hat is the thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder, since my sister was experiencing something too, like, did we witness something and we don't remember? Or, like, you know?
Yeah.
Why are families affected? But again, that could be like, you know, you're sensitive, so your kids are sensitive or whatever.
True.
So there's a lot of parallels with the Men in Black. It's mostly how they look, but also that, like, ominous, threatening behavior, like the observing you, the following you, the watching you.
Yes. Stalking feeling.
The stalking feeling, yeah. I read a little bit on Reddit about people that have had encounters with Men in Black. So this is from Midnight Sax on Reddit. Their appearance looked like what I can only describe as plastic and expressionless. They had a pale olive skin tone. They spoke in a raspy, monotone voice, and their speech was very precise, almost sounding synthetic. They had very cold and intense gaze. Some of the questions they asked were, can you describe what you saw? What do you think you saw? And just to back up, this guy saw a UFO. There was a backstory, but
okay.
Can you describe what you saw that night? What do you think you saw? Did you take any photos? Were there others who might have recording devices or cameras? Do you know if anybody recorded this incident? Have you spoken about this incident with anyone else who wasn't present with you that night? Do you find any unusual debris at the location? Would you be withholding any important information from us?
That's a lot of questions.
Yes. So somebody else from Reddit, Dan was in Japan, also had a run-in with MIB. I can tell you MIB is not necessarily human, but they can flip their vibrations into the fourth dimension and back to the third dimension. UFOs do this too. That's why they blink in and out of existence in our third dimension. Their role is to keep a lid on ET exposure to humans, but also find out what other ET races have contacted us. They serve a semi-negative role as a barrier. Metaphysics and consciousness is interwoven in the ET phenomena. It's interdimensional and not just interplanetary. Deeper government projects are aware of this since they sanction non-local consciousness remote viewing in the U.S. military. So there's another link, remote viewing, astral projection, lucid dreams, which also happens when you're sleeping.
Wow.
So there's connections.
Yeah, there definitely is.
But then I have questions. So are there multiple Hatmen?
I mean, it seems like they would have to be, but then again, maybe not.
Are they the same entity?
Right. Like, how could it be that it's the same entity visiting so many people? You know, how?
What do you think?
So originally, right off the rip, I was thinking another interdimensional being for sure, like you. But then when the Benadryl got thrown into the mix, I started to think that it's still probably an interdimensional being.
Right.
I'm thinking that the Benadryl definitely helps people see him, though. Like, something in the Benadryl, again, like I was saying, I know it's not like a psychedelic, but that DPH, you know, just might be opening a little vessel up there that normally wouldn't be opened. And so maybe this guy's in everybody's bedroom all the time. Maybe he's always watching and nobody can really see him. But there's a lot of children that this starts off with, and I highly doubt they're getting Benadryl all the time.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I mean, some parents may do that, but I don't think that's the norm. Sounds like abuse, actually.
Yeah, and people take Benadryl to sleep. Maybe you see it as a kid, and then if you take Benadryl, you can also see it then?
Right, because some kids take Benadryl for allergies all the time, right? So, like, but then isn't there, like, a Benadryl that's drowsy and non-drowsy? There's a big difference, I think. The one that's drowsy has the DPH.
Yeah, probably.
So that kind of debunks that theory I have. Like, maybe the Benadryl isn't necessarily, or maybe when you're little, your brain is more open. Yes. Okay. So
that's
this
what
fits.
I'm thinking.
Okay, this fits.
That's what I'm thinking.
So children are able to see it because their brain is pure and open. And then as we age, you know, lots of things happen and our brain closes off a little bit, and then mess around with the Benadryl and you're in for a wild ride.
Yeah. So Tim Brown, the guy that has this book to come and the Hatman Project, his story involved multiple people in his house seeing it.
Okay.
So he saw it, he freaked out, thought somebody was in the house. And then when he told his family, they were like, oh, well, he lived with his grandmother and his great grandmother, and they both saw him too. Like through not necessarily the same night, but around the same time.
Wow.
I just don't know. And like I said, I feel very strange, like explaining my story, because I expect not to be believed, but
there's probably people out there that's going to be like,
out there. There's tons of people
there
out
might be some out there that are like, holy shit, I saw that all the time as a kid and I thought I was the only one,
That's
know?
what a lot of the stories said.
So yeah.
It was like it came up in conversation and somebody else like pointed it out that it is a thing.
Right.
Or they like stumbled upon a YouTube video and like saw it and was like, oh shit, like I forgot about that, and I did see that. And
right. It opens up your mind. Like, even when you were just talking, I started to think about being young in my room and feelings like something was watching me. Like, maybe I did see something like that, but I blocked it out or just don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
So many people can revisit memories, and I don't know, not me really so much. So like, you should never feel weird or silly for sharing this story because somebody may relate to it and remember. Because I just literally just talked to someone the other day. Hi, Amanda. I think we should give little shout outs to because we do have a lot more listeners than we thought when we started to go over. And I'm like, wow, we do have some really nice, awesome, supportive friends. But anyway, she was like, mind blown about the Mandela effect, which we'll obviously talk about in another episode.
Talk about that.
But she was like, literally, she's a little older than us, and she was like completely mind blown by it. So it just goes to show that there is no topic that is like too overplayed or, because there's always going to be that one listener that it somebody gains a lot of information from. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. And I know we've talked about limiting beliefs and like certain friends that, treat you like shit over your beliefs and stuff. And it's not even necessarily a belief, but it's what happened to me. And like I said, like I'm as skeptic as they come, but I know that there is experiences that people have and there's no explanation. It's happened to me multiple times.
Right.
My dad has some wild ass stories. We should have my dad on here.
Dude, my dad too. Oh my gosh. He tells me this crazy story. Yeah, we'll have to definitely
we'll have to have a dad episode.
My dad only has one really crazy story, but I swear he says there's somebody out there that's a witness. So we got to get him on there too, because I need proof.
Yeah.
I need proof, but some crazy shit. Yeah, we should. We really are. And like, should we tell them about that we reached out to, what's his name?
Yeah. So Ryan Coleman from our last episode about the New Bedford siren, we did reach out to him and he is willing to do an interview with us. It's just a matter of like
setting it up.
Yeah, because technicality.
It's our first. It would be our first.
I think we could do it with Zoom. I think that would be so much easier. But
that's true.
That's a lot for me.
Yeah, we'll get there. But the fact is that we are going to plan to have people on the show with us.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome, right? Yeah.
And then eventually, I know we talk about it every time, but eventually I'd like to have a YouTube channel. And
we'll get there. Yeah.
We'll get there.
We will.
So any final thoughts on Hatman?
I believe, like I'm a big believer. I am skeptic about some things, there'll be topics where I'll be skeptic. And honestly, I was a little more skeptic towards like shadow people. And then when I heard that you had this experience with it, I was like, oh, shit, maybe I can't be skeptical anymore because she's had a real life experience and she's a skeptic. So, but no, I definitely am a big believer. Like your story just opened my mind more to it because I really didn't know I didn't know anything about Hatman, truthfully.
Yeah.
I kind of thought Hatman was just any other shadow person,
I don't know.
So
I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. It's just weird how specific it is.
Right. With the same hat.
It's just
in the cloak or whatever. Yeah. That's very specific for everybody to see.
Yeah, my initial thought when I first looked into this was that it was some sort of time traveler. But like again, why the watching you? Is it I don't know, because then it's like, is it an alien? Is it MIB? Is it like, I don't necessarily believe in demons or anything like that, because I'm not religious, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But that stupid religious lady, I don't mean to say stupid religious lady, but she was a little out there in the podcast I listened to, and she's like, oh, how can you believe in a demon and not Jesus? Like, she's like, you have to have the opposite. Like, if there's evil, then there's good too. And it's like, well, sure. Like, I believe in the universe, and like,
I believe in evil people and good people.
Yeah.
I believe in evil souls and bad and good souls. Mm-hmm. Like, some people are just evil to the core. We know, like,
right. But I don't put any stock in, like,
definitely not. Like, if there's any kind of entity, to me, it's evil or good, but I'm not going to call it a demon. I'm not going to, Well,
then it gets into like, what is a demon? Is it like an interdimensional being that's just evil? I mean, isn't that like, does it come from quote unquote hell? I mean, we don't
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. No. I almost started saying something and I stopped myself. Did you see it? I'm like, we'll get into that another story another day. No, I don't want it today. It'll tie in better in another story.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right. So that's it for this episode. I think that went well.
I think it was great. I had fun. I always have fun. Yeah. I'm so glad.
I can't believe I talked for freaking 45 minutes straight.
You did great.
Did I? We'll see. We'll see.
You did. Thanks for listening, peeps.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
People.
Yeah.
One person. Again.
Or one peep. Thanks for listening, Pete.
You have to get out of that habit, because listening you are the one that matter.
Yeah,
I know.
But like we know there's multiple
shout out to
peeps.
all our peeps.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, that's better.
There we go. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
For another spooky topic.
Stay weird.
I'm leaving that in.
Wait.